Hello and welcome to episode 21 of Stay on Target, Games Radar Plus's weekly journey to a galaxy far, far away. With me today are Will Salmon, editor of Comic Heroes, and Lauren O'Callaghan, the new entertainment editor of Games Radar Plus. I'm Richard Edwards, I'm the editor of SFX magazine, and today we're going to be discussing the biggest issue of all in the Star Wars universe. What is the best movie? Now, I'm going to start it off by saying this is a really short debate. It is clearly Attack of the Clones, right?
Of course, no question.
Okay.
That bit on Naboo, poetry.
That is romance, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that is Casablanca done properly, really. Let's start with the prequels, because I mean the prequels do get a pretty bad press, but there are some good things in there. I mean, the Phantom Menace, there are some good bits in there.
It's quite well structured.
That sounds like you're clutching at straws there.
It's a nice fight at the end. No, it is actually not as bad as people say. I don't think it's necessarily a good film, but there are good moments in it.
Yeah, I think the main thing is that they're just nowhere near as good as the original trilogy.
Yeah.
So you're always going to watch them in comparison. So they're not as bad as people make out, but in comparison, they're not great. So,
I mean, I don't think anyone would have got that hooked on the original Star Wars movie if it had been all about trade disputes and had a Gungan in it and all that. I think, yeah. Did you think George Lucas lost track of what Star Wars was all about?
I think so, but you say that for a generation, there are lots of kids who grew up with the prequels, and for them, that's Star Wars. You know,
yeah. I think
they're insane and wrong, but you know, sorry.
I think that was a big thing as well when they came out, was the idea that they were going to hook a new generation. But it's kind of hard to tell when you're not that generation. You know, did they have the same impact on the new viewers that the originals did on us? It's hard to say. But yeah,
I think the one thing that the battle they always had, I guess, is that we all had in our minds that what the Clone Wars were. You know, we'd heard that line and we thought it was really exciting that we were going to kind of see Anakin and Obi-Wan fighting in this sort of big battle, and then the prequels didn't really turn out to be what we expected, I guess.
No. In a way, maybe that's a good thing. You know, he did keep surprising us. It's just that perhaps the surprises weren't so good as we'd hoped.
Or Darth Vader might say yippee.
Yeah.
Now, of course, when the Phantom Menace had come out, you know, everyone, it kind of had this stigma to it, and then Attack of the Clones seemed like this is the chance at redemption. But then it never came, I guess, because it was this romance plot, which is kind of key to the whole thing, this idea that Padme is part of Anakin's downfall, yet you never quite believe it.
I think in some ways Clones is probably the worst of all six, isn't it? Because it's, you know, you have with Empire, it's a middle movie, but it's a middle movie with lots of great stuff going on. In Clones, it's a middle movie where nothing really happens for a long time until that big fight at the end, and yeah, the unbelievably terrible romance plot.
I think maybe the mistake they made was they recognised that the romance plot was very important to explain, you know, what actually happens to Anakin, and decided to give a lot of time to it, but not do it very well. It is a hard thing to do, to try and convey like an important relationship like that, but yeah, they just failed really.
And I mean the writing is pretty poor as well, isn't it? I mean, you never buy anything about that relationship.
No, especially not when you saw in the last film that they met when he was about, what, 9?
Yeah.
It's quite strange.
Yeah, for me that just ruined it straight away. Like, there was no way I was going to believe that they were in this loving relationship when he was so young when they first met.
And also, she's not interested, then he kills a bunch of sand people. And she's like, okay, you're the man for me. So, now, of course, Revenge of the Sith, that had everyone knew the ending, but I mean, this was what we'd all been building for. I mean, do you think it delivered on what we were hoping for, you know, of Darth Vader's downfall?
I think in some ways, yes. I think the final fight with Obi-Wan and Anakin is actually pretty well realised, I think, and reasonably emotionally engaging. I love the Order 66 sequence, which is just fantastic, and it's kind of that just sort of seeds so much stuff that goes on into things like Rebels. Yeah, and I like the end of that film. It's not a great movie, but it's more consistently entertaining, I think.
And it's pretty cool as well how it's not that the Empire takes over the Republic; it basically just becomes it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right, to be honest. For me, that the fight scene saves it. Like, that's amazing. I've struggled to remember anything else that I particularly loved about the film. So, yeah.
It does also have Christopher Lee doing a backflip.
Yes, he did that for. No, he didn't. No, of course. I mean, we're really talking about prequels because they're there and we have to. And then, of course, there is another Star Wars movie. There's the Clone Wars movie, which got a theatrical release. Was really more a prologue for the TV show, and it does have a couple of really cool sequences in it. But I don't think anyone's going to be voting for that as the best movie. Now we get on to the important bit, the original movies. Where to start? I guess Episode 4. I mean, I guess even now it's impossible to kind of quantify how important that film is, and I guess for people who saw it for the first time then, what it meant.
Yeah, I think, you know, it has like a special place because, you know, it was kind of the first Star Wars film and everything grew from there. But for me, it's not the best film of all, mainly because it's more of a setup for everything that comes after it. I still love the film, I still think it's a great film, but every time I watch it, I'm just waiting for the next one.
I mean, there's a real economy of storytelling to it. I mean, yes, the dialogue is sometimes a bit clunky, but it kind of gets away with it because it's, I don't know, it is just simple. It just takes you from A to B, and doesn't try and overcomplicate anything. Absolutely,
yeah. It's just so economically told. Still feels so fresh and different to anything that was kind of around then. And also, you never realise that it was a troubled production, which, you know, it famously was. It just doesn't feel that way. It feels so confident and, you know, just well put together.
And just from the off, there's this amazing iconography. I mean, the stormtroopers look great, the spaceships look great. And just that it talks about all the time now, but this used universe aesthetic, that everything's a bit grubby, and it just you never feel like you're in a studio, do you?
No, not at all. And even down to things like the sound design, like the TIE fighters and things, it's just incredible.
Of course, it had it left whatever followed a big act to follow. It did sort of become the biggest film of all time, and then Empire Strikes Back comes along, and it's possibly one of the bravest sequels of all time, I think, in what it does in terms of story. I mean, it starts off with its biggest action sequence, and then I guess puts all its characters to hell.
Yeah, I think they definitely were aiming for different with a sequel, which is always risky, but if it works, it's great, because, you know, you don't want to be seeing the exact same thing again. I love this film. I think there's a good argument for it being the best Star Wars film, probably for obvious reasons. It's got like the massive reveal is in Empire Strikes Back, but also lots of different things as well. Like, personally, I really like the change of scenery at the beginning. The fight sequence is amazing, and also the love story between Han and Leia kind of blossoms, and I really like that bit as well.
Well, it couldn't be more different to the relationship between Padme and Anakin, could it?
Well, exactly. I think, like, if you look at the two side by side, I think the problem is they tried to recreate that with Padme and Anakin, and they just completely missed the mark. So yeah, if you want to see it done properly, watch Han and Leia.
Yeah, it did have the advantage of Harrison Ford and Carrie
It did.
Fisher.
It did.
Absolutely.
The chemistry there is brilliant.
Yeah, really good.
But it's like because in Empire you've got a charming, sort of lovable rogue, and this kind of slightly more distant politician, essentially. But then in Attack of the Clones, it's just these two very stiff and icy people who you don't really, you don't feel like you know.
Who you come to think of as people you met.
Yes.
I mean, of course, Empire is a really unusual structure for a movie, because it doesn't really have a beginning or an end, but that's kind of its greatest strength, I guess.
Sure. For me, it's not my favourite. I love the Hoth sequence, and I love the last section from Bespin onwards. But the middle slightly sags, I think. All the stuff in the asteroid field. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Even the bit where the Millennium Falcon's flying through, which is pretty much my favourite scene ever.
I think it could be over familiarity, because I've seen them all so many times, you know.
And it's got Boba Fett in it.
He's great, yeah, that's true.
I mean, put my cards on the table. It's my favourite. It's possibly my favourite film ever. But yeah, I think it's wonderful. And then of course Jedi comes along, and then it has to wrap up this saga. And it starts off with actually by taking you completely out of the main story. You know, by taking you to Jabba the Hutt and basically carrying on the Han Solo arc. I mean, Jabba the Hutt sequence is great, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got to say, I know I've said that it's not my favourite, but I love that opening sequence so much. I thought it was actually a really great way to open the last film, because, like you were saying, it's probably not what you would have expected, but it works great because it refamiliarises ourselves with the characters. It ties up, you know, some of the major things that happened to them in the film before, and kind of like opens up to the further continuing bigger story of the trilogy.
Sorry, I think that's a really kind of well put together opening as well. Just the way that you're introduced to Han in Carbonite. You've got Leia, who's in her bounty hunter gear, just infiltrating the palace, and then Luke just sort of swagging up in his Jedi robes and stuff. It's nicely reintroduced, really well paced, and then a really excellent fight scene. And all the stuff with the Rancor, and
Great music too.
Yeah. I think
not so much in the new version, but
yeah. Jedi rocks. Oh dear. Yeah. Now after that, of course, it's pretty much all about getting rid of the Death Star. You got, you know, and controversially, that involves some teddy bears. Ewoks, completely different species. Now, this is the thing that's always held up to beat Return of the Jedi, the fact that it sort of resorted to very toy-friendly teddy bears. Is that a problem?
I don't care. I really don't care. I don't know if it's just because I was of the right age for that film when it came out. Like, I saw it when I was, 4 probably, I guess. And I loved it, and I still love it, and they don't bother me one bit. They're fine.
I mean, they're originally going to be a Wookiee planet. I mean, that would have been rather different.
I think that would have maybe fit a bit better, but I don't have a massive problem with it. I mean, if you're a sucker for a happy ending, then Return of the Jedi is great, because everyone hugs a teddy bear and after they've destroyed the enemy, so and has a bit of a dance. So yeah.
But there is a bit. I mean, there is tragedy there. I mean, Obi-Wan I'm getting mixed up between my Jedi. Darth Vader, you know, he gets redemption, he becomes the good guy, and then dies, and that's it's actually quite a poignant end, I think.
Yeah, no, I think it's very well played by all the cast. They're really sort of movingly done. Not over-egged either, I don't think. I think it's sort of nicely believable. It doesn't hammer it home. You just sort of gradually start to see the thawing in Vader. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot now. What is your best Star Wars movie? The best Star Wars movie, and what is your favourite? So, Will?
I think the original is probably the best, as in Episode 4, not The Phantom Menace. But my favourite is Jedi.
Probably favourite Jedi, because I love a happy ending, but I think the best film's Empire Strikes Back.
Well, I'm going to say best film, Empire Strikes Back. Favourite film, Empire Strikes Back. But I've been saying that for the whole series. So,
no holiday special?
Yeah, well, that's a TV. So if you're asking me for favourite TV episode, it would probably be the holiday special, clearly. Okay, well, that's that for the best Star Wars movie. I think we've closed that debate once and forever. We're going to be taking a little break on Stay on Target for a bit, so we'll be back in a few weeks. But in the meantime, may the Force be with you.